Uh, Welcome everybody to the Read cohort for April 19th, 2023. And thanks everybody who looked and saw the new link. Yeah, sorry we had to change that link, but that's my fault because I decided to change agencies. So hopefully that everybody will continue to get the message and come join us here. Do love the amount of people we have on the cohort email mailing list right now. We have over 2,000 and it keeps growing. So also just want to say, if people haven't noticed it yet, we are recording. We record all of these, and then we are now putting them on YouTube. So go ahead, and in the email, there's the link to the YouTube channel. I think also if you just like search Read Cohort, they'll come up. So I think we're still waiting for our guest speaker today. Think what else is going on? Cedar, are you on?
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn. Can you hear me?
Did you want to announce the spreadsheet you're gonna start on the Google Drive?
Sure. Maybe I'll just kind of do a preface on that, and then we'll actually show it to folks when the spreadsheet's complete. So there's been sort of a concern over the last couple of years that some of our reef trainees are having difficulty connecting with incidents. Just for a variety of reasons, one of which is that if lead reads put out a general name request, oftentimes reef trainees will not be, even considered by those local dispatch centers. So we've had a number of folks who said, "Hey, I've been available all summer long. I'm not very tied in with the greater Reed community, not really tied in with my local fire folks, that well, and I'm having difficulty getting out on assignments, and I don't know what to do. I'm feeling frustrated." So one of the ways that we're thinking about attempting to approach that issue this year is to create a sort of an analog to the availability list, or what we call the incident reads needs list, that's hosted on the Read Cohort Google Drive. And this is that spreadsheet, for those of you who haven't seen it, where lead reads can basically identify specific needs they have in terms of resource advisors or fire archaeologists or support reads on incidents. And it's been very successful as a means of connecting those particular positions and qualifications that we need for particular incidents. So we're thinking of trying an experiment this year and creating an analog, which would probably end up being a tab on that spreadsheet, which would be a place where trainees, reef and ARC and READ trainees, could essentially indicate that they are available for an assignment. And then this could kind of be, in a sense, kind of like a shopping market for lead reads out on incidents who are looking to fill particular roles. Let's say they need, a wildlife reef, or they need a hydro reef or something like that. This would be a way that they could go in there, select trainees that could indicate what their specific skill sets are, and then this would be hopefully a way to connect folks to those incidents. The way that I'm thinking about managing this would be through a Microsoft form. And so what I'm envisioning is that we will have a link on that tab. You can click on that link. They can fill out a very simple form that would include instructions and sort of expectations for this process. They would then submit, obviously, like their contact information, their specialty, their availability period, stuff like that. That would then get translated by someone, probably myself, coordinating that spreadsheet. And I think a key point is going to be that there'll be sort of a deadline. There'll be like a timeline. So if you make an application, you'll have, let's say, a 2-week period or a 3-week period. It still has to be determined how long that will remain on that spreadsheet before it gets wiped clean. The expectation will be that people will, contact that coordinator and let them know, hey, I'm on an incident or I'm no longer available, so we can take people off the list. But there'll also be an expectation, because undoubtedly people will forget, that if you have, put in a Microsoft form availability entry there, and we haven't heard back from you for a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, then at some point, then you'll just automatically be removed from the list in order to keep it current. Yeah, so I think that's what I've got right now, Lynn. Still in the development process on this. Could answer any questions if anybody's got any thoughts. And I'll tag on there if anybody is interested in assisting me with this process. I could certainly use an alternate for when I'm on incidents or unavailable. So feel free to reach out.
I know there's a comment in there about trying to do an in-out board. I would just say that, remember that the READ cohort is all voluntary and pretty much all on our own personal time, except for the small periods of time where our bosses let us do things like be on this call. So trying to set up a whole big in and out board is actually a pretty something that we may not have the technological ability to do.
I'll add to that. We did actually investigate that option and inquired with the DOI National Bear Team, and the contract that they have for that in-out board is close to like $10,000 a year or something. So there's no way we've got the funds at this level to support that anyways.
I don't know that we're still waiting for Ron to
see a comment here, Lynn. Yeah, and whoever was asking that question, yeah, we are envisioning that this would be interagency. So this is, anyone who's qualified as a resource advisor, archaeologist, reef, yeah, they could participate.
So just to reiterate, everything that this cohort does is interagency. We actually I switched this just so I would have my teams. So it switched to Park Service. This cohort's not really sponsored by any agency. So everything we do, we have to be thinking non-agency, non-everything. So just want to remind people of that plug. We just sometimes the people who step up to help us happen to be all one agency or a variety of agencies or whatever people who have time to want to do it. I will also put a really big plug in if you are a trainee or you are getting people trained, so they will be a trainee, that trying to just get them training assignments at the local unit or with local people. When people go off to off their unit, take a trainee with you. Especially if you sent somebody to training, there's there's that expectation. They also need to have some field training and some experience training, not just the class. So I think, Melissa, we still having trouble with Ron getting on?
He's on right now.
Ah, cool. So Ron, do you want to turn your camera on?
I heard your voice through his phone.
Okay.
There we go.
There's my great one. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ron.
Can you see me?
I can see you too.
Oh, this is strange. Everything's up on top. It's usually on the bottom. All right. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. We want to thank you very much for coming and talking to us. I think that I probably would actually butcher a good introduction for you. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then you can just share your screen and start with us. It's a pretty informal group, but we really appreciate you being here.
Well, me and technology, it'll have to be informal. Good morning. This is Ron Goode. I'm the tribal chairman and haven't had my cup of coffee yet. So still waking up, but I'm with the North Fork Mono Tribe, and we're glad to be invited to speak with all of you. We do a lot of cultural burning and meadow restoration work and landscape resource work. So want to share a little bit of that with you today, and been on a large number of Zooms and calls working on various issues on climate change and intellectual property, as well as cultural fire. And so very interesting that worldwide we're looking at a number of issues that are going on now and how to better approach things, and we have our way, I guess, as many of the others watched PBS show last night, and some of the Northern California folks were on there. We all do things a little bit different. So this today will be my take on how we do cultural fire. Anyway, okay, are we on? Share my screen.
Not seeing your screen yet. It might just take a second.
Where do I go to? Windows or?
Yeah, you should either be able to click the window that it's. Oops. Sorry. I forgot to hit the button for the volume. We'll get this.
There's less rain, more extreme heat. Wildfire records are broken annually. The impacts of these fires are so common, there is a new psychological term, solastalgia, referring to the depression and anxiety that accompanies the fear of environmental loss. It is no wonder that fire is seen as an adversary, as something to fear, to fight, and suppress.
Manahoo. I am Ron Goode. I am the tribal chairman of the North Fork Mono Tribe.
To Chairman Goode, fire is a friend. Fire is as important as rain and sunlight.
Mana. It's a renewal song.
The tribe's creation stories tell us about water, land, and fire, about philosophy, traditional practices, and creation itself. In the Central Valley, Ron carries the fire today. Living in Clovis, he works tirelessly to share his tribe's ancient tradition of cultural burning.
My name's Bill Leonard, and I'm with the Southern Sierra Miwok Nation.
Hi, I'm Taylor Pennywell. I'm from the Time Maidu tribe in Berry Creek, California, and I'm also the executive director of Red Bud Resource Group. And I'm here because I want to learn from my elders and traditional cultural knowledge keepers.
My name is Len Nielsen. I work for CAL FIRE in my day job and out here on the weekend for having fun with Ron, teaching people about cultural burning.
Cultural burning is different from prescribed burns that target areas to reduce fuel and the possibility of uncontrollable wildfires. Prepared improperly, the burn is hot, cooking the soil, and fuel is reduced, but there's no return of resources. Cultural burning expects the return of rejuvenated resources. Small-scale burns happen over time, and the ash is mixed with the soil, creating nutrients.
When it cools down, he'll go in and drop everything. And then we'll cut all the hairs down, all the burnt stalks, and begin to rake up. And we'll rake all the ash in with topsoil, mix it all up, spread it back out, and then it'll be done. They're already 4 feet high since March, and we are in the middle of a drought. So for that to have that kind of a return, you know, it didn't need a whole lot of water because the soil and everything was just right. And the sourberries grew around the older bush, and you can see what the grasshoppers came through already. And they don't hit the sourberries, but they sure do love the tobacco. This is midden from the old fires, and it looks almost the same texture, and it'll leave a film on your hand. Look at that. Well, it is. Look at that. Huh? Is that gorgeous? It might be a hand clapper coming up.
Ron explains, land calls fire, together they call wind, and they bring water. Cultural burning reduces the fuel load, rejuvenates cultural resources, and restores the watershed and ecosystem. Ron and his tribal team share this knowledge with landowners, firefighters, and his community. The forests are fire adapted and need fire applied the traditional way that dates back thousands of years to survive and flourish. The land needs good fire. Water needs good fire. We all need good fire.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that. Now let's try one more trick and let's see if we can get the PowerPoint up.
Because I can see your background. There you go. Now we can see your PowerPoint.
You can see it?
Yes.
That is strange. All right. Do we still got anybody with us?
Let's sit here.
Okay.
I'm still here.
We still have like 200 people for you, Ron.
Wow. Well, my coffee arrived, so hey, get going here. All right. Anyway, this is a look at, you know, overall where we're at, which I'm talking to the choir. So, but anyway, pre-1850, California was full of water, you know, water everywhere, water in the valley, the mountains. The one key thing that we're always stressing is the trails were all kept open, ridges were open. We know this because of, we go back in history and then look at some of the early settlers who came in Joseph Walker and Zenas Leonard came over a little bit north of Yosemite when they came over the Sierras, and their story is that their trail was completely open. They never had a problem coming through the forest. Others have talked the same way, whether it was John Muir or Charles Fremont, many of them all coming through talking about how open it was. The Native Americans kept their villages burned and open. The wildfires happened. Escape routes were needed. So you know, it's really important was that we all understand this, that you know, fire, the smoke will be there upon us miles ahead of the fire. Heat will get there a half a mile ahead of the fire. So for the Indian people who lived out there on the land pre 1850, they had to have a place that they could get away, and that was true for the animals. So we see that today, though, in all of our wildfires, that, you know, because our trails have been shut down, our roads have all been shut down, haven't put fire on the land the way we need to be putting fire on the land. So what do the animals do today? They go and hide. They don't have trails to get out. And of course, and the wildfire comes through, then that's where we find the animals, you know, all burned up, huddled up in some place where that was dense and thick. They thought they were hiding from it. That's the change in what happens to, you know, the wildlife out there. But you know, that's the kind of thing that didn't happen when the native was on the land. Of course, that changing of that philosophy all happened when the Euro-American arrived. We have to understand that we always had droughts, fires, floods, environments, all part of the natural environmental design. When the global warmings came about and when the drought started happening, 1987, my people all immediately said, well, what's the big deal? We've been here before. We know about droughts and we've heard about global warmings, you know, so it wasn't a big deal other than the fact that they knew that it was coming. Again, back in looking at pre-1850, scientists have said that 6% of California burned, 2% by Native Americans. To get an idea what that 2% is, look at 2008, 2015, 2020, 2021. That's when 2 to 4% of California was on fire. And we pretty much thought the entire state was on fire, but it was only 4%. That's just an idea of where we're at. So we've been doing a lot of work with the various departments. This one here is a burn with at Sequoia Park in the national park systems. They don't have a problem with me when I'm out there, or one of my workers like Jess or somebody out there burning. We can burn right with them. We don't have to have red cards. We don't have to have little yellow suits. They don't mind us burning right alongside of them. It's different when we're burning or going to a burn with the forest, and they want us to park miles away and don't come close to them, and you know, don't participate with them. But the park is a little bit different. What's really important is the smoke for the resources. Everybody's always talking about how bad the smoke is. Well, when you're talking about wildfires and the smoke's been sitting here for 3 months, not so good. But when a fire burns through properly, then the smoke is good for the trees and the habitat. Not sure that if I have it further down in here, but with Sequoia Park, we did a study, 3-year study, and we came into all these blue oaks and recorded how many were there, how many were in good shape, how many were not so good shape. We monitored their size, how much acorn they were putting out, if they were putting out any acorn. So the bottom line is that 36% of 2 acreages that we monitored was 215 blue oaks, and 34%, I think it was producing acorn. After we burned for a couple of years, then it advanced to 56%. And so, that's a big change in the acorn production. It's very important for the wildlife, and we're talking about, the first thing I do when I come into any place is ask, give me a list of who lives here. Who are you responsible for taking care of? Who's feeding off of the acorn? And half the time the list I get is 5 endangered species. So that's not the list I'm looking for. I want to know who's out here, who needs acorn: bear, turkey, deer, squirrel, blue jay, woodpecker. Everybody that's feeding off the acorn, and then everybody that's feeding off of them, we're all responsible for them. So however much acorn that we're producing, even 50% is not good. Real quickly, again, we already talked about the mega droughts that took place from 450 to 1650 AD, the 3 global warmings during that period. There were also 10 to 20-year droughts from 1550 to 1850. First mega drought was 250 years, 50 years of flooding, then another 180 years of mega drought. Global warmings were recorded by various researchers in the ocean, Tulare Lake and Tahoe. Our current drought got started in 1987 to 1992. Then we had an El Nino, then another drought, flooding. The San Joaquin River Bridge got wiped out in 98, 99. And we've had more droughts. The current, after 2012 to 2015, that brought in the bark beetles, killing millions of trees. We are currently in our 6th drought of this 35-year, that's now 36th year of drought. PBS show last night finally admitted that, it's a good possibility we're moving to 50 years. That's what I've been promulgating for a while. It's interesting that now they're just now getting on board with the fact that we're not done. We're looking at Fresno County's average of 100 temperature days. It's supposed to be 38, but in 2021 we had, I think it's the other way around, we had 60. 2022 we had 70. We went up last year to even higher. So don't know what it's going to be this year. We all know and understand what happened here with when the bark beetle came in, but the real key issue is to look out at the forest. Look at the evenness of the forest. Look at the thickness of the forest, but look at the type of growth. Those are all 50-year-old trees, maybe some 25-year-olds. They're all the same age. Nobody went in and thinned it. Nobody tended the garden. Everybody just plants, and then they leave it. I'm not sure, I think what we need is gardening lessons. This, of course, is what happens when it looks around our meadows. One of the things that we're doing, we've restored over 6 to 8 meadows. I got another 8 or 9 to do this summer. What we're doing is we come in here, we look at, we have old maps from 1943, 2008, 2015, which tells us where the meadow is supposed to be. and then we go in and take everything off the meadow that doesn't belong there. And all of that you should be able to see through. So we go in there and start feathering it and reducing the thickness of it, so that in the watershed, the water needs to be able to come down here to the meadow. What's happening to many of these meadows is the drainages are up to 3 feet deep. So when the water comes in off the watershed, it just flows right through the meadow. The meadow is not being a sponge. It is not holding water. And you can see that there's high spots, low spots. And so you can see how dry it is right here. Of course, this is what happens when our forest is too thick and we can't take care of it. This is from the creek fire. There's areas out there that are on the rocks that trees may not grow back for 100 years if they do. Again, with the meadow situation, there are over 10,000 recorded meadows in the Sierra Nevada mountains. 70% need maintenance or repair, 25% are non-existent, and only 5% are considered healthy. And we look at many of the meadows out there today, and what is considered healthy is maybe a 30-acre meadow was probably 300 acres at one time. So just, it's really come down. But there's all of our talk about water. We just got done with the Tribal Water Summit, and lots of discussion on how to take care of water. If we can't take care of water at the top of the watershed, we're in trouble. So instead of 5 healthy meadows, they all need to be healthy. In the last 20 years, we've restored 6, working on more. One of the key elements is when the native was on the land, the canopy was 40% or less. Of course, now we're looking at 80, 90% in thickness. I sat on the Dinky Collaborative for 10 years. I finally quit. The forest had $10 million. Not one penny was spent on meadows or on cultural resources or on oak groves, all on prescribed fires. What did it get them? Well, I hope it got them, a good tree product, because that's all they burn for. So we're not looking at taking care of the forest from a forest health standpoint. And I say that because I'm also working on the forest plan revision. Been on for 13 years. There's two things that the forest plan revision has, and that's recreation sustainability, economic sustainability. No forest health sustainability. And what is recreation? Recreation is their number one economics, and economics is logging. So 1 and 2 are all about economics. And that's our thought. That's where we're going forth with the next 20, 30 years, is, how the forest can still give to us. We're not going forward thinking about what can we give to the forest. What can we do for the forest? What did the forest do for us when as Europeans, when we first got here? We don't think that way. And this is what we're going to continue to have. Cultural burning brings back a defensible space. Good fire also works to bring up the water table. We do a lot of cultural burning. We're burning in Mariposa, where we have 400 acres over there to work on. But we're also now going statewide and we're doing surveys with states, with tribes all over the state. Who used to burn, who wants to burn, what do you want to burn, how do you want to burn, what problems are you having with what agencies, and what policies are you having trouble with. We are cultural burners as the North Fork Mono Tribe, our team. We are not Trex people, we are not firefighters. And so, this is a very difficult avenue. We're holding to what we believe in and how we want to do this traditionally. Many of the tribes are trying to follow our lead. There are also many of them going down with the Trex program, becoming firefighters, but that's just so they can jump through the hoops of the various agency policies. We train our people, we do our own training, we do our own certifications, and it takes time. This is one of our young leaders. She's only 23. I now have about a dozen new leaders, and one or two burn bosses. Our burn bosses are not California certified burn bosses. We are cultural burn bosses. The idea is that we want to make the burn needs to have a nutrient stage so that when we're all done, the ash gets mixed in back into the soil. And you have that immediate renewal. We expect it. We know that it's going to happen. We've been working on our meadows, taking an old black oak tree that was dying and barely producing any acorn, but it used to be a real good acorn producer, and we restored it. Went from 25 pounds a season to almost 200. We're now working with, like I said, all over the state. So we've been doing some work with Thule Indian Reservation. We went down and worked on Eagle Meadow and restored Eagle Meadow so that they can bring beaver back. We're still working on that. One of the key elements of looking at your nutrition, that it takes 4 or 5, maybe 3 or 4 times for the fire to burn from white to black to white to black, and then with then it goes to purple, which is part of your magnesium change. So you can see where the guy's raking away, that one's purple and the others are brown because they've been finalized. When it's purple, it won't grow back right away. We worked on mud meadow, working with the sequoias. We went down there to help them with their sequoia trees. There's a big problem. Oh, I got 10 minutes. I got to start on another one. Oh my God. Okay. There's a big problem with the sequoias where it's an emergency for people to the forests and parks to start working with their sequoias, and they wanted people to come in and scrape around 5 feet around the tree and then remove everything 25 feet out, and then make sure the bigger trees are cleared back 100 feet. The problem is that the moment you start scraping around the root system, that's what you're doing, is you're scraping the roots. And if you remove everything on 25 feet on the ground floor, you're removing the nutrition, the food. And then if you go back 100 feet, you can't just push the trees back there. You're going to have to go back even further, removing any kind of fuel load that's going to cause that fire to climb up into those trees. So again, we've saved this old water oak. Looks good now. A lot of work with our red buds. Basket makers are all out there with us, bringing the culture back, reviving the culture. Okay. So I've got just a few minutes. Anybody there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. Any questions?
We do have some questions in the chat, and I'll just read them out to you. So I have a first one. Is there ever a concern of introducing invasive exotic plants during cultural burning?
Introducing?
Yeah. Sort of.
I'm not sure what that means, but we don't introduce invasive plants. Many times we work with invasives. Some invasives we get rid of, some we don't. In other words, like let's say blackberry, for instance. My tribe is split. Some of them hate the blackberry, the Himalayan blackberry, and the rest of us love it. So it's a love-hate affair with some of the resources, but the brooms, they're very difficult to get rid of. Even if you burn them, you have to pull them, and you just kind of have to keep after them year after year. Next, go ahead.
I think maybe Julie, Julie Recton, your question, maybe you should speak that. I'm not really sure what your question is.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my question has to do with what you're talking with raking in order to finalize and get the color of the ash to change so that you get the restoration that you want. Would that have been done in the past more by wildlife, such as ungulates or gophers, causing that soil turnover? Is this something that you're doing now because of the way that things are now, or, is it change, or, sort of more background on that?
Sure, it's a traditional practice, and we've always worked with the soil, and it's important to mix that ash. So the white to black, somebody else was asking the same question. White to black is the ash, and the black is the charcoal. My elders have instructed me that a few fires every year has to have some charcoal. So we'll leave one or two strategic fires here and there with a little bit of charcoal and a little bit of ash. And what we find is we'll actually find animals coming and dusting themselves with little holes inside of our ash piles. They're not thick, it's thin, but they can come in there and they roll around, they make holes. We've seen big deer rolling around in our ash piles. So it's important that we do leave a little bit of that. Otherwise, the actual mixing of the soil and the ash is to create a nutrient that the plants are going to grow back healthy.
Okay, Eric, you have your hand up.
You mentioned earlier in your presentation that prescribed fire smoke is good for trees. Can you explain why?
A number of things. It helps it to rejuvenate. We've got some studies that are going on, and various researchers are working with us. We've had some problems with acorn. When you start looking at acorn and you study to see how many have what the worm and weevil content looks like, on the ground. And then a couple of our trees, actually, we were picking the acorn after we trimmed it up and raised the canopy on the tree and cleaned it up a little bit. But then the acorn, you take the cap off the acorn and there's a hole in it, and it's like, well, how in the world did that happen? But the study that we're getting back is that when the acorn is budding off the tree, the parasite is actually laying its eggs there at the same time, and that's how it's growing together. So you come in with this before the cap grows on it, the worm is already inside of it. So that needs to be, the smoke then will help to what's the word? It kind of comes in and dusts it off, but that's not the word I'm looking for. It's more fumigating is the word I was after. And then the same is true for like mistletoe. I'm having a big heated discussion with California Native Plant Society on mistletoe and what it's doing as a parasite and how it's killing our trees. And so, but every time any one of these wildfires that I listed down there, we always see a slowdown in the mistletoe, as well as the sudden death syndrome. Any of these things that are attacking our trees, they all have a slowdown after a fire and after you are smoking the area real good. But we as tribal people, when we watch the wildfires, and every day we watch to where that smoke lays. Where does the smoke lay? And that's where we go to look for our resources to gather, because that's going to be the best place to go. I'm going to have to leave, but one more question.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, do you want to ask your question? Tim Inglesby.
I appreciate all the nice comments.
All right, I'll speak Tim's. It was just, there's the debate between cultural burn and prescribed burn, and also trying to fuse the two together. I guess, what are your thoughts on our cultural and prescribed burns similar? Can they be merged together?
They can't be merged together, but what they can have is, I'm saying, and I'm writing articles saying that there's space and place for both burners and for both fires.
Well, thank you very much, Ron. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and being with us. We appreciate all your hard work that you're doing.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Ron.
Bye, Ruth. Okay.
All right, everybody have a great